Okay, ready?
Uh-huh.
Audacity. 3, okay.
2, 1. Record.
All right.
Oh shit.
Shit.
Hang on a minute.
Jinx, shit, jinx.
Error. Why?
All right.
Error opening. Right. Let's stop and start again.
Okay. I really liked our shit jinx though. That was, I don't even know how to do a new one. Hold on, let me get that right.
I'm gonna have to quit it and open it again. I don't know what the fuck.
Yeah, I'm doing the same thing.
I think it has a bit of a
Okay, let's try this again.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. Record. Did yours work?
Yes, nailed it.
Okay.
As always.
How are you doing this week, Karen?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know. It went like Monday through Friday and like one snap, and then we're here. I don't know what I did this week. It was nuts, but I had a good week last week. Traveling, had a girls' weekend, went college touring, went on airplane flights. It was like a big whirlwind of awesomeness.
Yeah, you were super busy.
It was good to get the hell out of here. Let me tell you, it was very refreshing. Yep.
Yeah. That's why we didn't have our Halloween episode on Halloween because we were so busy. But do you know what? I found stuff out today that just cancels that whole guilt.
Yes.
I will tell you about it in this week's episode.
So excited.
It actually just sorts out all that shit.
Oh, I'm so excited. Yeah. I always find that the best stuff I find is just like now, where I find it like at the last minute. Like I think I'm tapped out and then I'm like, what is this? At like the last minute. And I find the coolest shit out.
I found it out like 2 hours ago.
Yep. I've so been there. It's the best. And you're like, thank God I wasn't ready before, because then I would have stumbled on this awesome thing. What are we even talking about? I don't even know.
We're going to talk about Halloween.
Oh, okay. Are we talking about Samhain? Samhain. I feel like I have to go in like a linguistical time warp when I say that. Samhain.
Say it again.
Samhain.
That's the weirdest.
That's how that's how you taught me to say it. It's so weird. It looks like Samhain in print. It messes me up every time.
I know. It actually messes me up every time and I have to keep reminding myself, but you just sounded super strange there.
That's how I feel like it has to be said. Samhain.
I just say Samhain.
Samhain. It still is weird.
You're saying it like your voice has gone all funny.
Samhain. It's the weirdest word I've ever heard is why. And it doesn't look anything like it's spelled. So it's like the whole thing is weird.
No Gaelic words sound like they're spelled. They're all weird.
Yeah.
Every single one that I read online, I have to go onto an online pronunciation thing and do those little online pronunciations where you press a button and somebody's speaking it, because it never sounds
for
the way
sure. Oh, God, I should do it right now with Samhain. How do you spell it? It's like
if you're listening to some weird computerized pronunciation, of course it's going to sound like that, but that doesn't mean that you have to say
I
it.
want to know. I want to. That's how you taught me to say it. How do you spell it? It's like F-A. You did too. You did too. I have the episodes to prove it. How do you? Oh, here we go. Samhain. How do you spell? It's like spelled Samhain. Oh, here we go. Ready? Let's see what it smells like. Samhain. See, that sounds really normal.
Yeah. I don't know where you got your weird one from.
Because you taught me.
You got your weird one from the same.
Samhain. No, we can literally go back to like. We can go back to like episode 2 when you were telling me how to say it. Oh my gosh. That must be the American. I feel like the UK pronunciation, the emphasis on the second syllable. It's like it's like so. You say it again. I can't even imitate you. I can't remember.
I don't even know if I'm saying it right. Samhain.
See how you say Samhain, and this is like Samhain. It's like the emphasis is on the opposite syllable.
Yeah, but I could be wrong.
See, listen.
It could be Samhain.
But this is also like this is like Google America. So
Are we gonna call this festival the festival that shall not be named? Just like
yes,
the city that shall not be named?
every episode has words. Okay. Oh, I'm gonna do this. Google up the pronunciation of Edinburgh. See, I have to sound like a man, I think, when I speak Gaelic. Okay, I'm gonna see what this one sounds like.
The capital of Scotland is a beautiful and vibrant city, famous for its castle and numerous festivals.
I don't know why this is so long.
How do we actually pronounce its name? Many non-native English speakers say Edinburgh, which is not exactly how it should be pronounced.
Oh.
In fact, there are at least a few different ways to pronounce it. Most people in the UK pronounce it either Edinburgh or Edinburgh. Interestingly, many locals tend to abbreviate it simply Embra. For more pronunciation videos, subscribe to our channel.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
Okay. Yeah, I have actually heard Embra.
Embra, like bra, like Embra. Yeah. What? It gets weirder every time.
Yeah, I have heard that.
Edinburgh. I can't do any of them.
We'll get you. Maybe in like 2 years' time, you'll finally sound like you're.
So if I fly into, do I say Glasgow or Glasgow? How do you say that?
I hate the way Americans say Glasgow.
That's why I'm asking you. How am I supposed to say it?
I hate it. I say Glasgow.
Glasgow.
If you're glass, your glass. Well, I put my hands up.
That's how you told me to say Samhain. That's why I say it weird, because you say it weird.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Love you too.
Glasgow.
I say Glasgow. Some Scottish people, or I think Glaswegians, would say Glasgow.
Really?
Glasgow. Yeah.
Oh God, I'm gonna fail no matter what comes out my mouth. Okay.
What do you say? Say it again.
I would say like Glasgow. But I know as soon as I say it, I'm like, nope, that's not right. It should be like I think an American would probably say like Glasgow. But I know it's like Glasgow.
That kind of actually hurts my head a little bit.
I'm trying not to say it out loud. All the cities of Scotland that cannot be named by anyone from the Americas. We're the worst. I'm so sorry.
I'll have to find some more for you.
I admit it.
Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. You go.
I was just gonna say before we yap on.
We're not yapping on. It's only been 6 minutes. It's like the shortest intro we've ever done.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
I had to tell you about this book that I just finished.
Oh my gosh.
It was so good. I binged it in like 2.5 nights.
What is it?
By I mean 2.5 nights. The third night I was near the end, so it didn't take that long to finish it.
What is it called?
So good. And it's called The Ninth Child, and it's by Sally Magnuson, and it's a novel. Yes. It's not a fact book. It's not a fact book. It's not a
non-fact book.
I'm not even the one that's been drinking. It's a fiction, but you, being as much of an expert on fairy folklore as I am, which is like
0, but yeah, 2%.
Well, more than the general population, probably.
Yeah.
As soon as I started reading it, I was like, oh my goodness, this is where this is headed. And it's basically got one of the characters in it is Robert Kirk, who
I know yes, I know exactly who that is.
The Secret Commonwealth of Fauns
Yep.
and Fairies and Elves. And I hadn't realized when I got his book that it was published in the 1800s, but actually he was alive in the 1600s.
It was like 1648 or something, and he was a pastor, and he was responsible for like an enormous amount of information that we know now is from him.
Yes. And then there's a whole load of folklore that has sprung up around his death, because there was a fairy hill behind the kirk where he worked, and it was called Doon Hill, and it's still there. And I googled it, and there are people leave offerings around the tree. There's like one tree in the middle of the hill. People tie bits of fabric and stuff, and it's called the Fairy Hill. And he walked up this hill and he died suddenly. And then the folklore that sprung up around him was that he didn't die, that he was actually taken away by the fairies.
Right. I remember reading that. So cool. So he's in the book. So he's a character in the book.
He is a character in the book. But I'm not going to give you too many spoilers.
Yeah.
He appears in the 1800s, having been spewed out from fairyland back into normal land, and he comes across this woman, and he's got slightly evil intent. He's super creepy, and he's still being ruled by the fairies, and it's so creepy. It's got such creepiness, and it's such a good novel. It's about this woman and her husband who moved to this loch called Loch Katrine and Loch Chon. They're right next to each other, and this is actually the author took all these elements that are true. So the true story is that they did build a huge big waterworks in the 1800s in order to transport water from the loch to Glasgow. And that actually happened, and she's taken that actual historical incident and the actual the existence of Robert Kirk, and she's made it into this super creepy story. And I'm not going to tell you anymore, but I was literally page turning. I was on the edge of my seat, and I felt like the fact that I knew who Robert Kirk was made it even more enriching for me, because I already knew that backstory of him. And so when he appeared in the story, I was like, oh my goodness, it's Robert Kirk.
I love it. Can you please tell me? It's called The Ninth Child, and who is the author?
It's called The Ninth Child, and it's by a woman called Sally Magnuson.
Oh yeah, that is so getting bought like today. Yeah. Thank you for that share. I have been buying books like crazy. I took a whopping like 2 weeks off, and now I dove right back in.
What have you been buying?
So I've bought 3 books in the last 2 weeks. One, it's a long story of why, but there was a little time to kill on our college tour. So I flew up to upstate New York with my middle son, Billy, to go college touring. And we had a lot of time on our last day. So we hit up a Barnes & Noble, and I cannot go into a bookstore and not come out without a book.
I know.
I'm like physically unable to do that. So I bought A Little Bit of Fairies, which is an introduction to fairy magic by Elaine Clayton. There's a whole series. This is like a whole like end cap. Do you say the word end capped? Is that like in the UK? Like an end capped in a store. That's like you have all the shelves, and then an end capped is like a shelf that faces you, so it's like prime real estate in any store basically if you get an end cap section.
I've never heard that word.
Yeah, that's what an end cap is. And it there's like a whole bunch of these they're all branded to look exactly the same, like they're the same covers but different colors and the same size, and they're all on different subjects. So there was like fairies, there was one on oh my gosh, it was like Buddhism. One was on like Wiccas and witches, and one like all super cool things. So I was very hard to pare it down to just one, but of course I had to get the fairy one. It's okay. It's not my favorite. It's a little, I don't know. It's a little generic.
Simplified?
Yeah. And there were some things I was reading and I was like, well, I don't think that's really true. Like, just because I've read so many now, like source material, it's not bad. And it did have some interesting new ways to think of things, but it was interesting anyways. And then this one I have been really enjoying like crazy. This one is called Chasing Ghosts by Mark Hartsman. And it's really well done. It's kind of like the history of ghosts and also like how they're perceived throughout history. I really enjoy it. It's very good. And it's really high quality. And it was $22.99, but it weighs it's like super heavy. It's like really heavy, like really high quality. So I think it was worth every penny. I am thoroughly enjoying that one. I read it.
You're not freaking yourself out?
No. I'm trying to go
becoming
away.
A bit immune to ghosts?
No, actually, I think the opposite is happening. I think I'm freaking myself out. It's getting bad. Like when I go into my garage and now I'm like, oh, like at night, I'm getting like spooking myself because we went like such a deep dive for so long. And I'm like, this is not good. Because when I finally do get my Scottish cottage, I'm going to be too freaking scared to sleep there by myself. You know, I'm like,
I'll come and stay with you, Karen.
All right. I guess it gets into me and I can't get it out. And so it's like freaking me out. But I thought that if I could like objectify them, then I could overcome my fear of them a little bit. And I think the opposite is happening where they're becoming more and more real and I'm more and more scared that they're going to like come and surprise me. So, and I'm going to Savannah in the month. So I really need to I haven't Googled the house that we're staying. I haven't Googled if it's haunted yet because I'm terrified. Because the last time I was in Savannah and I Googled it was haunted and it was like, yes, massively. And I was like, oh shit. So I'm kind of waiting on that. And then I just purchased, it came super fast, this book called If Women Rose Rooted. It
Sharon Blackie. I've got one of her books.
Yeah, she's really famous and I'm new to her world, but apparently she's already been the classic for a while and I just was unaware. And I went down a rabbit hole of podcasts researching for next week's podcast episode. And that research is what led me to this book, which just showed at my house today, actually. So I'm really interested to read what the heck is in store. It's all like a weird combination of like mythology and guidance and I don't know.
I think the book that I've got by her is based on folk tales.
Yeah. I know she's really famous.
I've kind of delved into it, but I haven't read the whole thing from front to.
Yes, I think I know the one you're talking about is like her famous. She's known for one in particular, and then this is her one after that one. Okay. And I was like, should I just get them both? And I was like, I'm just going to start with this one. But when you open it up, there's a map of Scotland, England, and Ireland. So it's all based off of like using, I don't even know. I haven't read it yet, but I'm excited to dive in. I was obviously chased it down for a reason. I can't remember what that reason is now, but whatever. It's all good.
I also bought this book on Isabel Gowdy that I was listening to the Witches of Scotland podcast, and their latest episode, they interviewed the guy that wrote this book. And so actually, while they were in the middle of talking to him and I was still listening to the podcast, I went on Amazon and ordered the book.
We are the same person. That's me every week. I'm the same. That's how I learned about this woman. I was literally in the middle of listening to a podcast and I was like, wait, hang on a second. What was that?
So it looks interesting. It is a self-published book, which
that's okay.
Is fine because that doesn't mean
all my books are self-published.
I think a lot of people go down that route these days because it's so much easier than trying to pimp yourself out to
I don't have time for a publisher. If I had to wait for a publisher, I wouldn't have done anything by now.
Exactly. Anyway, it looks super interesting. It's called The Black Book of Isabel Gowdy, but it's also got at the bottom here, and other Scottish spells and charms. His name is Ash William Mills. And so basically I haven't started reading it yet, but it's got the confessions of Isabel Gowdy, and I think he delves into that quite deep. And then he also obviously talks about, I think the impression that I got from the interview was that he was not only a historian and a scholar, but he was interested in magic himself. So he's kind of going into the kind of spells and charms that witches were supposed to have used. And I think quite a lot of his sources are books that we've also talked about before. Like the superstitions of the Highlands and Islands and those kind of books. It looks super interesting, so I'm looking forward to reading that. But I'm actually in the middle of reading another book at the moment, which I didn't take because it's on my bedstand, so it's upstairs, so I didn't take it down. It is called The Witch, but it's not the one by what's his face,
Hutton, something
Robert Hutton.
Yeah,
it's actually like a teen novel.
no way. Is it good?
And it's really good.
No way.
Yeah, it's like super easy reading. It's like one of those, like it's kind of that liminal space between teen and adult. What's it called? Like young adult fiction?
Yeah. Yep.
Young
adult. Yeah, it's a good genre.
And it's called The Witch, and let me just get up the Amazon page.
And for anyone, in case this is your first episode you're listening to, Isabel Gowdy is a witch who is probably she might be the most famous witch of the Scottish witch trials. And Lucy and but it was Lucy's week, did a whole episode on this. I want to say it was like episode 8 or something.
Was it? It was quite early.
It was early, I know.
When we were even more crap than we are now.
The Scots,
and
I'm Karen.
I'm trying to find the episode list.
It's okay. I'll delete.
I found it. So yeah,
I'll delete that bit.
Yeah. Wait,
we don't want to
edit the podcast.
We don't want to hate ourselves twice.
That's crazy, Lucy. I'm just
trying to. Do you know how much editing I did last episode? Oh my God, we were speaking so much crap.
That's every episode where I keep speaking so much crap. I'm really glad I renumbered the episodes, except I'm looking at now, we're missing episode 14, doesn't appear to exist. Episode 12 does not appear to exist. I think it's because I can't count. Where is episode 7 and 8? Is this me? All episodes. Maybe I just didn't listen to those. I stopped listening to us.
I stopped listening to
I feel like we just can't get it right, and I don't want to know anymore.
This book is called it's just called Witch, and it's by Finbar Hawkins, and it's like if you want like a bedtime read that's not too taxing on your brain.
Yeah,
it's
that's
really
nice.
good. It's set in a time in the past. It doesn't say when, but it's clearly set in the witch trials type time, in like a little village somewhere in England maybe, and it's just about this girl whose mother gets killed for being a witch, and she's then homeless, and she sets off on a journey, and she wants to revenge. She wants to get back at the killers.
Nice. That sounds good. Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
It was episode 8, by the way. I was right.
Was it?
Nailed it. Just saying.
I don't know how you remember those things.
I don't either. And our numbering is correct. I was just looking at the wrong thing.
Oh.
Yeah. Yes. All right. We're not as bad as we thought. Although we all still are really bad. What are we even talking about? I can't wait one second longer.
Shall we dive in?
Yes. I can't wait.
We are going to talk about Samhain.
I'm not saying it. Really? Or can we talk about like the thinning of the veil? Because I always wanted to have this conversation.
Yeah.
And I've not ever once had it. Yes.
So do you know something? I do feel, being Scottish, without wanting to be too hung up on countries and where you're from and being patriotic, because I feel like that can lend itself to being a little bit unaccepting of people of other cultures. If you're too like, I'm proud of my own country. I hate all these, like, I maybe shouldn't say this. We've got lots of American listeners, but all these American flags people fly on their outside of their house.
That's not me. So you're safe with me. Don't worry.
But at the same time, every so often I think, oh God, I freaking love the fact that I'm from Scotland. We're such a cool country. We invented Halloween.
You guys, yeah.
It came from our country and
Yeah.
it's all over the world. Well, I don't know. Do they do Halloween in like Thailand? Probably not.
I don't
but
think so.
is it just America and Britain? I think other
Australia and Canada does it too. What? Those are all UK-based countries.
All the white,
yes.
all the white UK-based.
But those are commonwealths. Those are all commonwealths of England.
But that's the thing I hate about our country.
Of course,
how we just went and took over the whole world and tried to claim it as our own. So I don't feel proud of our country, my country, when it comes to, well, England.
Yeah.
Don't feel proud of it when it comes to stuff like that. But I do feel a little bit patriotic and a little bit like a proud parent when I think about things like the fact that my country is responsible for Celtic culture and all this folklore and Halloween, or certainly the origins of Halloween, not the modern day trick-or-treating type Halloween, which is really an American concept and actually has found itself come back over here. But I found out some super interesting stuff about that too, which we will discuss.
Yes, I'm all ears. Yes, I'm all ears.
And the thing that I was really the most interested to find out about was the origins of it, but also the fact that certainly when I was teaching in school, doing Halloween stuff was banned, kind of. It was
really
like not really banned, but discouraged. Teachers were discouraged from doing any lessons to do with Halloween. And the reason why was A, it's too spooky and it'll scare the children. And B, it's like a pagan holiday rather than Christian. But actually, the way that Halloween is now is nothing like the way it was when it was a pagan holiday.
Right.
All that shit, all that spooky shit, and like the demonic stuff, the stuff that Christians complain about
is the stuff that's from Christianity, right?
The stuff that they impose.
That's the only part I know.
I know I'm getting on my soapbox a little bit, but I'm like, okay, you changed our pagan festival.
Right.
You first of all, you stole it so that you could impose your own festival on the same day.
Mm-hmm.
You change it to demonize people that you don't approve of, like witches and things like that.
Right.
You incorporate all this spooky shit, and then you say, oh, we don't like Halloween because it's all this horrible evil stuff. But they're the ones that made that happen.
Right.
And that kind of gets my goat up a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's very ironic and also a little
apologies if anyone's like super Christian, and I'm not actually criticizing you. I'm criticizing the historical church, the people that did this in like the 800s and the 900s and the 15th century and all of those.
Right. Well, it's a little hypocritical is what it is. But it's not anyone who's living today's quote unquote fault, right? That's just what happened.
Mm-hmm.
But I would love to. It's really interesting. So tell me more.
The first thing is, Karen, I spent the whole week thinking, oh, should I do Halloween? Like, is that not going to be a little bit lame because we're late? We're now. It's now the 5th of. Well, just wait and listen to this tea that I'm going to spill.
Yeah.
Because it's now the 5th of November, which is actually Guy Fawkes night here in the UK.
Oh, right.
So, there's some crossover between Guy Fawkes and Halloween, but I was thinking, oh God, no, I'm not just a dick because I listen to Lore Men podcast. the other day.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And they did Halloween like
Mhm.
2 days after Halloween. And they were like, well, we're not that late because it's only a couple of days after. And all these people are posting things online saying Halloween's over, on to Christmas. And so I was feeling a little bit guilty because I thought, oh shit, like we're going to be like by the time we get this edited and up, it's going to be like a week late. Karen's shaking her head. It's like editing, schmediting.
Yeah. There's no editing. Don't edit it. Who's got time for that? I don't.
And
but also
I actually discovered that we are celebrating Halloween on the wrong day. And actually the traditional Samhain festival was not on the 31st of October.
When was it?
We're all good. We're all good.
Oh.
It was on it actually lasted at least 3 days, but sometimes lasted like several weeks.
Really?
And it was, around the kind of culmination, the height of it was around the 8th of November, which hasn't happened yet. So we're not late for Halloween.
Nailed it, Lucy Bryden. Good job.
So the reason why that happened is, do you remember when we were talking, I think it might have actually been in the Isabel Gowdy episode, that the calendar got changed in the 1700s. So if you haven't listened to that episode, why not for a start? Come on.
Number 8. Yes.
It's not good enough. But if you haven't, I'm going to explain it briefly here. So in the 1500s, the Julian calendar was replaced by the Gregorian calendar for reasons that still are not clear to me, and I can't be bothered finding out. So if you really want to know that, you can go and look that bit up.
Google that shit yourself. You're welcome.
Yeah. But in the UK, because we're a tiny little island away from Rome and a little bit slow, obviously, we didn't change it until 1752. So that meant by that time, 200 years had passed, that all the days were out of sync.
Wow.
And so they actually had to lob off 11 days. And there was a huge uproar because people lost 11 days. So the 31st of October, the 11th of November became the 31st of October.
Got it.
So actually, Samhain was celebrated around more like the 11th and I said culminated on the 8th, but actually it started around the 8th and it culminated, they think, around the 11th, which interestingly enough is now our Remembrance Day. So do you have Remembrance Day in the...
Yeah, but we call it Veterans Day.
Is it on the 11th of November?
It is. Yeah, it is.
And I think that's because that was when the armistice was. But actually, Samhain, which is a festival for partly for remembering the dead, is really funny that it's now not funny. That's the wrong word.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah,
interesting.
Right.
That it's now Remembrance Day around the same time.
Right.
So, despite the fact that the Catholic Church, Roman Church, fucked up all of our festival dates.
Right.
Basically, we kind of got it back now. So they actually messed with all of them and they had to move them around. So all these pagan festivals got shifted and the dates got changed and they ended up calling them different things and we ended up losing them all. So, for example, Yule, which was in the end of December, became New Year, which is called Hogmanay in Scotland. And then one of the other pagan ones, which is called, and I cannot say this word, is Imbolc. IMBOLC. That got moved. That was originally on February 2nd, and it got moved and it became Valentine's Day. One of the ones that didn't get moved was the spring equinox, because obviously the equinoxes are all to do with the stars and where things are in the sky, which is actually why Halloween should still be on around the 11th of November, because it really, people though in those days would have been following the star placements of the stars, because they didn't have a little calendar in their house that they tick the dates off,
right,
or made marks on their doorpost like a criminal would. So most of them had no idea whether it was like the 31st of October or the 11th of November or whatever. But apparently the spring equinox was originally the 1st of April, and then it got moved to the 21st of March. And that is why the 1st of April is called April Fool's Day, because people that still celebrated the equinox on the 1st of April, who were now celebrating it on the wrong day, got called an April Fool.
They were like, psych, we moved that. That's
not
true anymore.
Not realizing that we fucked your calendar up and moved it all over the place.
Fascinating. So did all of this calendar jimmying about happen in the mid 18th century, around the same time?
Yeah, in the 1700s.
It feels like it's so late. I feel like that's so recent for all that to happen. I would have suspected that to happen way earlier. Don't you?
Yeah, so confusing as well.
Yeah, I think so.
Confusing.
Especially because Christianity came and mashed with all those pagan holidays also centuries earlier as well. So I think it's interesting that it took
I think this was really like the final nail in the coffin for a lot of them, because they just kind of like, they did take them over and rename them,
right,
pretty much all of them. Christmas, all of them. But I think this was the final nail in the coffin, because then they just like switched all the dates around, and it probably confused a lot of people.
They were like close enough. Yeah. Well, you know, it's actually really interesting, because I mean, you can, in looking at it now from like a big overview view, saying you can kind of feel Christianity coming in, right? First they come in and they have to sort of assimilate their ways first, right? They're like, the only way we're going to get in good with these pagans is by like kind of like sliding in, right? Instead of taking over and just killing everybody who wouldn't agree, which came a few centuries later. That was their approach. But I think it's so interesting. And then it sounds like, I'm sorry, I just really love this part of history and looking back and seeing the like patterns of what happened. And then finally they waited to the 1700s being like, okay, fine. Okay. Enough of this mishmashing. We're making it official, and we're just putting this in stone, right? In written, printing calendars, right? We have agendas now with the date on them, and this is just making it official. That actually makes me so sad.
Yeah. Get your Google Calendar out. 31st of October
right
is now. But actually it was called Halloween, but they actually adopted it. It was All Saints Day.
Right.
So
which was wasn't that a Catholic, or was definitely that? I mean, that was a Christian holiday. I thought it was Catholic, but maybe I'm mistaken.
Yeah. So if we're going to go back even further, Samhain is the Celtic festival.
Right.
It's in the Celtic tradition, which obviously hasn't been written down. So I don't know how true a lot of these things are, or how authentic.
All true and authentic.
Well, what I mean is, by the time they're written down, if I'm going to be quite academic about it, which is so unusual for our podcast, by the time it's written down, it's already incorporated stuff from Christianity. So it's a little bit hard to take it right back to its Celtic roots and know exactly what those bits were.
True.
But as far as we know, this was a Celtic festival that happened. So in the Celtic calendar, if you like, where the year was just split into two. the light part of the year and the dark part of the year. So the dark part of the year started at Samhain and lasted until Beltane, which is in May sometime. And then the light part of the year was Beltane to Samhain. Interestingly enough, the days in Celtic culture apparently started at twilight, not morning time. And this was a festival where the veil was the thinnest.
Gives me goosebumps every time I hear that. I love it so much. And can you expand? Yeah, can you expand?
I'm going to expand on it.
I'm so excited right now. Sorry.
But it was also to do with harvest and like a harvest festival, because they'd spent the whole summer growing things. They were, yes, we're going to get back to cattle and milk, because everything in Scotland is about cattle and milk.
Amen.
You know, it all comes back to cattle and milk. But they had finished their harvest. They were bringing the cattle in from the fields to look after them inside over winter. And then they had this thin veil that was basically, Karen, all about fairies. And it's not, there was a little bit to do with ancestors and the dead, but it was connected to fairies. Ghosts and Ghouls and Witches is a Halloween with Ghosts and Ghouls and Witches is a modern Christian demonization of that festival. So this thinning of the veil was where the other world, the Celtic other world, where all the fairy creatures live, was the veil between the worlds was thinner, so it was easier to slip between the two. And sometimes that included your dead ancestors. So they would have various different rituals that they performed for those dead ancestors. And it wasn't about ghosts being scary. It was about honoring your dead ancestors. So they would make a place at the table and put food on this place during that time, so that if the your ghosts of your ancestor visited you, then they would have something to eat, and they would leave, they would have various offerings for your ancestors. But also sometimes those dead people were people that were kind of like taken by fairies. So you did have to be careful, because we know fairies are a little bit evil and they're not like always super nice. So some of the things that we associate with Halloween were actually to protect yourself against the fairy folk, not the dead folk. So there, our favorite YouTuber, Leah Wolf, I watched his video on Samhain, and if you watch his video, you're gonna realize that I just took loads of stuff from his video.
I literally love him. Don't know him. I'm married, but I love him anyways.
We want to know what he looks like. We're like so intrigued.
Super secret giant fans. Yes.
Yeah,
his YouTube channel 21. Is awesome. He seriously could be like my child. Whatever. Don't wreck it, Lucy. Don't wreck the fantasy.
I actually just forgot a super we're so professional. I forgot a super cool thing that I forgot to say. So I'm going to just sidestep for a minute.
Do it.
And tell you that there was actually a village in Scotland that called Killin, not Killing, Killin, that celebrated Halloween on the 11th of November up until the World War I.
Wow.
Yeah. They like refused to shift the dates.
Yeah.
Isn't that
like,
cool?
We've been doing this for 1,000,000 years. Fuck you with your new calendar.
We're not changing it just because of your
church
shit.
Yeah, I'm down with that. I would have loved to be in that village for sure.
I know. So anyway, where was I? Blah, blah, blah.
I'm riveted right now. So you're on your own.
I can't find where I was trying to. Yes, so this veil was super thin.
Oh, right.
The fairies would troop as trooping fairies would. They would go on like these marches, and apparently sometimes they would have dead people with them. And these were the people that were the people that like were like not allowed in to pass on.
Right.
You know, they were like in a purgatory type.
Oh, purgatory pals. We should call them purgatory pals.
Purgatory pals.
Because they're just hanging with the fairies till they get their little ticket to heaven. But that's also very Irish. That's like a very Irish Celtic. Yes. That's like where that line between the countries.
There's a big cross, and sometimes Leith Wolf does not tell me whether he's speaking about Ireland or Scotland.
But I do know that the Irish fairy lore is much more heavy into like the distinction between fairies and angels, and they're so steeped in Catholicism, which Scotland is not, and it changes all their fairy lore, which is so fascinating. It's so fascinating. Sorry,
it would be handy
if he could just come on the podcast.
Could tell us whether he was speaking about Ireland or Scotland.
Yes, we're gonna need him as a guest. Yeah,
wouldn't that be amazing?
Yes, I've considered reaching out like 100 million times. I actually don't even know. I think I'm just so busy, which is why I haven't. I like outreach to an artist today. I love actually outreaching to people that scare me. It's very exhilarating.
You should totally message him.
I will.
I dare you.
I'm going to.
I double dare you.
Done. I challenge accepted. Dare accepted. I just have to put
triple dare you.
I'm writing it on my hand so that it happens. Email Leith. He even has the coolest name. What the heck? Why are we not cool?
Maybe his name's not that though. Maybe his name's just like.
I'm sure it's not.
Jim
Although
Smith.
It would be cooler if it was.
And you know what? If your name wasn't that and you called yourself that for your YouTube channel, if that was me, I'd just change my name.
I would be okay with that. I would completely lie. I'm not original enough to like whip out a cool new name. I need to rename myself because my name is a meme of the worst like kind of American human being in the whole world.
I know.
It's awful. But anyways, I don't want to digress because this is awesome stuff. So let's go right back.
Oh, well, we could go right back if I could find my place.
So we're talking about the difference between quick tangent on Irish and Scottish. Samhain. Oh my God. How is that? I just said it in my normal voice and everything. I did that for you.
Yeah. So it was thought that these dead people, if you weren't careful, you would get like swept up in the crowd of these trooping fairies and carried along.
Do you know, I just have to interject real quick, but it's really relevant because remember
we got really far. We got one sentence before we got interrupted.
Remember the episode we did? Remember we did the episode about the Ballad of Tam Lin?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking about.
And that's what it reminds me of. It was like that, like the Halloween procession was coming and like they were coming for him specifically. Yeah. And he actually like was witness to the whole thing. So that's what reminded me of. That was a meaningful episode for me because it was like a lot of random research, but I felt like I learned a lot about the fairy realm.
Yes.
This is exactly kind of what so in my head, I have this image of these trooping fairies. I mean, horses and the fairy queen is there and the king and like this whole parade of fairy characters. So when you say
it's quite sinister,
it's super fantastical. Yes,
sounds like it would be this super happy thing, but it's actually quite sinister.
Well, and that's when people have to pay their tithe to hell. I mean, that is all in there as well. So I'm just letting you know I'm swept up, and this is what I'm thinking of when you're teaching me all more things that I didn't know about it. So I'm done now. I'm done. Sorry.
Are you sure you're done?
I'm done. Do you need me to talk more so you can find your place again?
No, is that what you think I was doing? Because it was what I was doing.
I knew it. I knew it. You're making me be the bad guy. You have no idea what you're talking about. Yes. I'm winning. I could go on. Just let me know. Okay, you got it.
So basically, I'm going to go a little bit off piece and try and explain it without reading off my notes. But there was this combination of harvest, celebrating harvest, fairies, trying to stay away from the fairies because they can get to you easier during this time because the veil is thin. I love that.
I do too. I know. I do too.
And then also maybe coming into contact with some of your dead ancestors and honoring them. So there was a whole heap of different things that people used to do. They had, the main one was that they'd have a huge big fire. So they'd have a big bonfire, and that would usually be lit in the village. Sometimes they would have 2 bonfires, and they would put them next to each other, and they would put the cattle in between the bonfires.
What?
To give like a cleansing, like a protection spell almost.
To the cattle, because they're so sacred.
To the cattle, because cattle are so sacred in Scotland. Because do you not know that, 500 years from then, that Stephen Brown is going to put Highland coup art all over fucking Scotland, make himself a fortune, and piss off every other artist that's Scottish.
In his defense, they're really good, but okay.
Sorry, I'll cut that bit out.
You're fine. You're so fine.
So yeah, sometimes the cattle were in the middle so that they could be cleansed with the protection of the fire. And there were all these rituals surrounding the fire, and I read them from various different places. Leith Wolf wasn't my only source of information, even though he could quite easily have been, but I also got some stuff from the favorite book of ours, Scottish Herbs and Fairy Lore.
Such a good book.
Yeah. And another YouTube video about Halloween that was American. I think it was like History Channel, something like that. Some kind of
just take full credit, Lucy. Just go forge forward with your knowledge. I'm all in.
The thing is that I watch all these videos, and then it gets ingested into me and it becomes my knowledge.
I know, which is why you can tell me whatever you want. I'm all in. I would believe everything that's coming out of your mouth right now, as if it was all, you knew it from the day you were born. You're so good.
Well, I'm Scottish, so it must have been.
It's in your blood. Yes.
It's in my red hair.
Yeah, it is.
It's in my brave hairstyle hair.
It's wound up in your plates on either side.
In my plates. So yeah, there was quite a lot of ritual involving these fires. They had huge bonfires, but how you had the fires counted. So people would light torches, they would carry them around the village to protect the village from the fairies. Sometimes all the boys of the village had to go spend several weeks beforehand going round the village collecting firewood for this big communal fire, which kind of reminds me of very early trick-or-treating. But they believed that if the sparks of the fire died before all the children were back home safe at the end of the festival, then they would be carried away by the fairies. So they had to keep the fire going. It was also thought that it was bad luck if you gave any fire out from your house, which I'm not quite sure why you would like give a fire out from your house, but
maybe
I guess if like
embers.
Mr. McAllister next door comes and says, my fire's gone out, can I get an ember from your fire? It was bad luck to do that during this time because your luck would go with the fire. So you would like be giving away your luck. So what you were supposed to do was drop a burning coal or a chunk of peat into water as soon as the neighbor leaves to stop any misfortune from
leaving
happening.
with it. This is like so fascinating. This was like our last episode. Remember when it was like the neighbors can come in and steal your peat, and then that they would like be able to have like occult powers from your peat fire. I'm sorry. It's such like a romantic notion because your whole life back then is so simplified into like your most basic needs. It's like fire,
milk,
cattle, food, tinder, kindling, peat, whatever. And like, that's
I was like, Tinder? You didn't have Tinder in those days.
That's different Tinder. Thank you. Get your naughty brain out.
Tinder, Bumble, Grinder, depending on your gender.
Harmony, whatever. But it's just, I love that. That's
had all that. They wouldn't have needed all the other shit that I'm about to talk to you about.
Oh, tell me more. I'm going to shut up so you can tell me all the things.
So with that giving away the fire thing, they had actually similar superstitions around giving out other things during this time. So believe it or not, you wouldn't give rennet away, which I think is a thing, something to do with milk. Something to do with
rennet.
Milk.
What is it? Rennet?
Isn't it the thing that you put in to make cheese?
I've never heard of it. Rennet?
RENNET. I think it's the thing that you put in to make cheese. Like you mix with milk to make cheese.
Rennet and cheese. Fascinating.
I think. Because if you gave some rennet away, so it, Mr. McAllister next door comes knocking on the door saying, "Have you got a cup of rennet handy?"
How do you get it? Oh, that's so weird. It's literally a complex set of enzymes produced in the stomachs of ruminant animals.
Oh, lovely.
Oh,
and it makes cheese.
Okay.
Are you gonna puke on our podcast?
Yes. How do you get rennet is the next question. I'm sorry. It says you can often find rennet at health food stores. That's not where you used to get it.
I don't think you used to get that in the
I love that's such a 2021 answer. You just buy it at a store. Mic drop. The fuck? Like seriously?
If our ancestors could see us now, they'd be like, "Oh my god, they are so spoiled.
They are a bunch of bumbling fucking idiots," is what they're saying.
I just need to go to the store. I just instead of these like toiling for fucking hours in the field, bringing your cattle in, worrying about spoiled milk, and and then doing all these weird shit to stop things from happening that might
right.
We're like, well, I'm just gonna go to the health food store and get some.
I love that the answer is you buy it at a store. That's so classic. Classic 21st century.
Get on Amazon.
Yeah. 2 hour. Order Amazon Prime now.
Free delivery. And it's tomorrow.
Obviously.
Unless you live in the Highlands and Islands, and then you have to wait another 2 days.
Yeah.
You Highlanders, you need to get some kind of punishment for imposing Halloween on us.
Oh my god, I know. So weird. It's so weird. We're so far removed from our ancestors. It's like not even funny. All right, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I just had to know what that was. And where to get it.
I knew it had I didn't Google it, but I knew it had something to do with milk and cheese, because if you give your rennet away, then you're going to have bad luck with your milk. Because it's all to do with milk.
Be selfish with your rennet.
Selfish with your rennet. Keep it to yourself. So some of the other things that they would do is they would throw cattle bones into the fire for some strange reason.
Okay.
And then people would jump over the fire, which would cleanse them from evil and protect them from harm.
Okay.
They would also take the ashes from the fire after the fire had gone out and take them back into their house and use those ashes for protection.
I like that.
Oh,
My cat just busted into the room by
I thought that
herself.
was a ghost.
It's my cat. We have no dog this week. Maggie's in training camp, so my cats have overtaken the roost.
Oh my god, that's such a 21st century.
Right?
Like, you think health food stores, but my dog's got to training camp.
She's in training camp right now. Well, only because she turns into Cujo and she tries to kill other dogs on my walk every single day. It's not okay. But I digress. All right, I'm back to Samhain.
Yeah. So blah blah blah.
No, it's not blah blah blah. It's fascinating. I love it. There's so much with like every part of the fire.
Saying blah 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 is me trying to find my place.
Oh, I know. I know exactly what that means.
So they thought that the dead could come and visit them. And I already spoke about how you would leave an extra setting at the table as an offering, but they would also leave offerings around the house for the fairies, so that they would appease the fairies. So for example, they would leave a saucer of milk out for the cat she, and so on and so forth.
Of course.
So Leah, our lovely Leah also speaks about how it differs from area to area, obviously. So one story he told was about the Shawnee, which I did Google the pronunciation. It's spelled differently. It's spelled like she need, but it's Shawnee, which actually sounds a little bit Native American.
It does. It smells like the Shawnee Indians. So that's what like came to mind.
And so that is a water spirit in the Isle of Lewis. And what the people in the Isle of Lewis would do is they would brew up some malt ale, which is like a beer, and then they would choose one person out of the clan to wade into the sea with the cup of ale, offer it to the Shawnee as an offering, and then he would recite the following, and I'm going to recite it, even though Leith will also recite it, and I'm sure his sexy voice recited it better than mine. I hope he doesn't listen to this. He'd be so embarrassed.
Seriously, mortified. I'm mortified, and he's never going to listen to it. I'm still mortified. Or what does it say?
Shawnee, I gie you this cup of ale, hoping that thou be so good as to send us plenty seaware, which is seaweed, for enriching our grun or the coming year. Do you want me to translate?
Yeah. Yes, please.
Shawnee, I give you this cup of ale, hoping that you would be so good as to send us some plenty seaweed for enriching our ground over the coming year.
Oh, it's like a toast to the ocean.
It's like
but it would be fucking freezing to be in Scotland in November and wading into the water.
But we're Scots, we're hardy.
You guys don't.
People go swimming in sea heat at New Year's Day. Did you know that?
Do they? No, I didn't.
It's like a tradition. You go for like a New Year's dunk in the ocean.
Oh my God. Have you ever done it?
Fuck no.
We're so hard, except me. I'm not doing that.
I'm usually too busy being hungover.
It would be freezing. I know, me too. Oh my God, it would be freezing. Do people? You know what? Every time I've been there, which has always been in the summer, I've never seen one single person in any loch swimming or enjoying the water in any way, shape, or form.
It's fucking freezing.
What? Is that not what I just said?
Yeah, but the New Year's thing is like, hey, let's do this.
Wait a second.
Suffer.
Let me get this straight. Let me just get this straight. It's too cold to go swimming and enjoy any of the lochs in the summer, but everyone is so hardcore. They're going to hop in on Samhain and New Year's. Is that what because they're hardcore Scots? That doesn't make any sense.
We've got to show that we're hardcore.
It doesn't make any sense.
It's part of our psyche that you just won't understand.
Are you guys like big swimmers though? I've never seen a single person swimming in any single loch ever.
How many lochs have you been to in
There's
Scotland?
So many. You can't drive 2 miles without seeing water in Scotland. It's one of the things I love about it so much. Zero. I don't even see boats. There's not even a rowboat to be seen. I mean, it makes for in the most beautiful scenery I've in the world, but there's no humans on or around the locks ever.
Because the water's filled with freaking kelpies and
Loch Ness monsters.
Creatures. And we're gonna go in there
where like there's no sailboats, rowboats, kayaks, canoes, motorboats. I've not seen the one. I have seen in Loch Ness there are, because it's humongous.
Have you thought about the fact that they might just be there when you're not there?
I mean, trying to be there as much as possible.
I'm gonna go to Scotland and sit for 365 days next to every single loch.
I just want to move there. I don't understand why it's taking my life so long to get me over there.
Come on, get over here.
It's
so much fun to do this podcast with you sitting right next to me. Can you imagine?
I know. We have to do one live. We have to do one when we're in June together.
I know.
We 1,000,000% are doing that.
Definitely.
It'll be shoddy for shit, but we're gonna do it anyways.
5 hour long.
It will be literally 5 hours. It's gonna be so stupid.
Lesson episode.
Yeah.
So busy filming lessons.
I know. Yes, I know. So what else do you have?
Yeah, so those guys, though, after they chucked 1 cup of ale into the sea, they took all of the rest of it to a big bonfire and got drunk.
Nice. I can get behind that. Nice.
Definitely.
That's like, yeah, that's a timeless fun.
Definitely.
Getting fun. You can get drunk in every century. Connects us all. Connects us with our ancestors. Across the moons, we are all drunk together.
You are a lady right now.
It's because I spent 2 hours waiting for you. What else was I going to do?
So this I got from the fairy folklore book, and it made no fucking sense. Wells were visited and decorated with flowers, and stones were washed.
What? Wait, say that again.
Wells were visited and decorated with flowers. That makes sense. So you go to a well and you decorate it with flowers, and then it says stones were washed, but I'm not quite sure what stones were washed. Were the stones of the well washed? Did they clean their well, or did they take stones from elsewhere and dunk them in the well to wash them?
Right.
Or like, what the hell were they doing there? I haven't got a clue.
But wells are like cattle, where they're like paramount to everything, which makes sense. That's like their drinking water. So I get it. Yeah. There's a lot of spirits revolving around wells, the importance, et cetera, et cetera.
So I'm not quite sure what the stones did.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't really matter that much.
Sounds
Another thing they did was they would bake bannocks. Bannocks also features heavily in Halloween culture. They would bake bannocks. If you don't know what a bannock is, it's like a horrible dry cake made out of oats that you would only eat if you're Scottish and you live in the 17th century and you've got nothing else to eat, basically.
Yes.
So they would take these bannocks, they would walk out into the field, they would take, each person would take a bannock, and while eating it, they would also toss small parts of it over their shoulders. And apparently that was like offerings to any malevolent spirits that might attack their farm.
That makes sense. Although I feel like if they was going to appease like malevolent spirits, they would
give
throw them
something nicer than bannocks.
Good food. Yeah. It's like the worst of all the food.
I know.
But good try. Also, I appreciate the efforts.
It actually kind of sounds like, you know, when you're at somebody's house and they give you something to eat and you don't like it.
Like,
so you like try and hide it. Like, so when you give your plate back, you like hide it underneath the fork so you can't see it. Yeah. So a little bit like that. I'm gonna throw some of my bannock away and I'm giving it to the fairies. Yeah. Actually, it means that I don't have to eat this fucking bannock because it tastes like shit.
Or every time you wipe your mouth with a napkin, you like spit a little bit about out into your napkin. You're like, oh my god, this is amazing. Like, oh, not eating that. Bite. The spirits. You go, bannock. Yes. Oh man, poor things. Yeah. And nothing good.
They would have this bonfire and a big, huge party, which, like I said, was all about keeping away the fairies and honoring their dead and celebrating their harvest. But another big part of Samhain in Scotland was divination, because they also thought that while the veil was super thin, that magic and the potency of magic was increased, the ability to divine things was increased, and of course the things that they focused in on, not milking cattle, but like love and marriage and babies and things like that. You know, they weren't asking about whether they would win the lottery or get a new car next year. They were just concerned about whether they were going to get married and who they were going to marry and whether that person was good. So there were loads of different things that they could do. And so we should have done this for Halloween. I think I'm going to do it for next year's Halloween, but obviously I'm not going to do it on the 31st of October. I'll do it on the 11th of November.
There you go.
Because some of these things I'd quite like to find out myself. So number one, nuts on the fire. The divination of nuts on the fire. So to do the nuts on the fire trick, they would put 2 hazelnuts on the fire, but I'm guessing it would be like in a pan, in a roasting pan. And women did this, and the 2 hazelnuts would represent themselves and their future loved one or a man they fancied. So you could have yourself and Leith Wolf if you so desire.
Lucy, that is not okay.
Karen and Sean. Kissin. You heard that rhyme?
Of course, yes. When I was in 3rd grade.
I haven't even drunk anything yet.
I know.
So they would put these nuts on the fire, and whatever happened to the nuts would foretell their future. So if the nuts jumped out of the flame, then the relationship would be super doomed. If one cooked and one burnt, then they weren't compatible. And if they just like roasted slowly and nicely, then they were perfect.
I'm gonna go roast some nuts on my fire. I want to know.
In other places, you would carve your initials into a stone, which sounds like a really hard thing to do, carving into stone.
It's really hard.
And then that was tossed into the bonfire. And if you couldn't, this is awful, if you couldn't find your stone after the fire was finished,
right,
you'd die before the year was out.
What?
I know.
That's terrible.
I know. That's awful, isn't it? Isn't it? Here's another one involving bannocks. If we haven't had enough bannocks, going off into the field and throwing them over our shoulder to get rid of some of the bannocks, we're going to get a double bannock bashing, because you would eat a bannock just before you would go to bed, but you had to eat it within 3 bites. It sounds a little bit like a horrible task.
That's like a challenge. It's so challenging. It's so dry. I can feel how dry it is in my mouth.
Do you have that program in the States?
Which one? I didn't.
I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here.
Oh no, but there's a lot of food challenge based reality TV shows.
It's like they go to the jungle in Australia, and they have these like food challenges where they've got to eat. They're always like Z-list celebrities, and they've got to eat like kangaroo balls and kangaroo penis and grubbly worms and fruit that tastes like vomit and like absolutely disgusting things.
No.
So it's a little bit on the vein of this. You would have to eat a bannock in 3 bites. You weren't allowed to drink anything. And you would have to go straight to bed. You weren't allowed to talk. It's like super strict.
It's like my worst nightmare.
I know. And then apparently you would have a dream in which your future partner would come and appear in your dream with a drink to quench your thirst.
Oh my God, because bannocks are just that bad that a whole ritual centers around them. like as a challenge.
You dream about drinking.
I just need to swallow some water for my dry panic. It's so bad. It's like a whole ritual surrounded by this nasty ass food. Does anyone currently eat Bannocks in Scotland?
I have never seen any in the shops. You can't order them on Amazon as far as I know. And I don't even think you
where
get them
to
in
buy
health food
Bannocks
stores.
in a store. Who makes Bannocks? Store people.
I don't think my granny even made. I think Bannocks were out even before my granny was.
Oh, really? Are they that old? I mean, they are like historically, and you do hear about them all the time.
A little bit like oatcakes though, because actually oatcakes are super yummy. I really love oatcakes. Do you get
like
oatcakes in the States?
They're not called oatcakes, but they're kind of like granola bar-y things. There's a lot of oatmeal based granola products.
I do love an oatcake with some
delicious.
Delicious.
They
are quite dry though. You do need to drink with them.
Yeah, you really do.
Yeah. So do you want to hear the kale pooling divination?
The kale pooling divination?
Kale pooling. So what the women would do is they would sneak out into the field at night, although this is like, I don't know how secret this is because it's down in a book as a well-known form of divination. So I don't think it was that secret really, but apparently they would sneak out and do it. And without looking, you have to have your eyes closed and you'd pull out a stalk of kale out of the field.
Okay.
And the condition of your kale would tell the future about your future partner
again. There's a lot of these.
Your future husband, I was going to say, because of course there was only heterosexual relationships in the 1600s. Never mentions anything other than that because it wasn't allowed. So if you had a tall piece of kale, your boyfriend would be tall. If you had a short piece of kale, he would be short. If you had a lot of soil attached to the roots of your kale,
oh no,
your partner would have lots of money.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you'd be really hairy. He'd be having lots of money. Nice. Love dirty kale.
If the stalk of your kale was crooked, your partner would be a bit of a dodger and not a very nice person.
Oh.
And if your kale was dirty, like not just the dirt attached to the bottom, but like the kale was dirty, then your partner would be dirty. And I'm not sure what kind of dirty that is. I guess you could interpret it however you want.
Literally dirty or sexually dirty. Is that what you're trying to get at?
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't say. So obviously none of those.
Doesn't say that? That's so weird that it doesn't distinguish between the two of them.
Well, that actually came, I have to give thanks to another podcast because I listened to the Stories of Scotland podcast and they told me about the kale pooling and they didn't say what kind of dirty it meant. But it was a super interesting podcast about.
I'm just guessing here. But in a world where your main priorities are cattle and peat fires and wells, that dirty means literally dirty.
Do you? And not
like kinky sex dirty. I'm just throwing it out there. Yeah.
Maybe.
Just so sad.
Because they didn't really worry about whether women liked sex back then either, did they?
I'm pretty sure that was not high on their priority list.
No.
But maybe it was. What do we know? Maybe we're presuming the wrong things. I don't know.
Unless you were Isabel Gowdy, because then you had really good sex.
That's true. With the devil and a closet full of penises. That's what I mean. Maybe we're presuming totally the wrong thing. What do we know?
So this one, we don't do any of those, although I think I need to resurrect some of them. I think I super like those. This one we still do. You don't do it in the States.
What?
Duking for apples. Do you do duking for apples?
Duking for like dunking for apples?
Yeah.
Yes.
Duking for apples.
Duking, a duke in the United States means to poop. So
What?
there's no duking for apples. No one is duking for apples.
Where the fuck did that
I
come
don't know.
from?
Like a dookie is like taking a poop. Yeah. So
Never
you
heard that.
you could dunk for apples. That's okay, but you're not duking for anything.
Oh, just like how I can't go to the States and ask for a rubber, I
Correct.
also can't say I'm gonna duke for apples.
That is correct. I'm glad we're having this conversation just to spare you.
Never heard that before. So we did it. Did you do it when you were a kid? We did it. We did it every Halloween.
Just to let you
That was
know,
our
I
big
think
thing.
you're
Duking for
recording
apples.
from your microphone again. Just so you know, I just heard it when you were doing your thing. Now that we're an hour and 19 minutes in. Don't worry about it.
Too late now.
Too late now.
Too late now.
Too late now. That's how we roll every single week.
There's always something that goes wrong.
Every single week. Is that true?
At least I remembered to press record on Audacity.
Nailing it. Wait, not every week. Every week. Maybe by episode 50 we'll get it right. You think?
I'm just gonna say, it's because we do a podcast that is primarily about fairies. I'm sure they're getting us.
I'm sure they are. I grew a tail out of my chin. Do you like it?
So did you guys duke for apples when you were kids?
Did we dunk for apples? We did. We were not pooping apples. No, we did. Yeah. It wasn't every game, but it was definitely, it showed itself at a few parties.
Yeah.
Yes. It's super fun. It's so fun. Yeah. It's hilarious, especially if you're a girl and you have a whole face full of makeup and and it's always
for those people that have never done it, then you don't know what it is. You basically have a basin of water and apples in the water, and you have to try and bite to get an apple out without touching it.
Really hard. Yeah.
But did you know that in the days of yore in Scotland, that it wasn't just a simple game, it was a way of finding out who would get married first. So couples would duke for apples, and the couple that got their apple out first would be married first that year.
Oh, that's so cute.
Ongoing till all the couples had got their apples out.
That's
Isn't
so
that
cute. It is cute. That's really cute.
Oh.
It's a sweet game. It's kind of nasty when you've had 50 people dunk their open mouths and been biting on things.
I don't think in the days of COVID that we'll be doing duking for apples anytime soon.
Not the most sanitary of games that I've ever played, but yeah, it is cool. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. That's really sweet.
So another one that they would do, because this is Scotland and you can't just do one divination trick and you can't just do one party game, because usually I bet there's a lot of whiskey drunk by this point.
Just going to say there's so much. By the way, that's what I was drinking before.
Oh, for you?
Yes, in Donna's mug that she gave me.
That is a big mug for whiskey.
Yeah, it is. That's why I chose it.
If you have a bonfire and quite a lot of whiskey, I'm sure there's a lot of party tricks happening.
Yes.
Another one was the throwing of the shoe.
What? What is this? What is this party game?
So what you do is you would throw your shoe over the roof of the house.
Okay. So fun.
However it landed on the other side would determine your future.
Oh my God. So fun.
If you were thinking about going traveling, the way that the shoe pointed would determine where you're going first.
Oh my God. Can we play this at the castle in June?
Can you imagine?
I want to hurl my fucking shoe over the castle. I can just picture,
God.
Oh my God, let's do it.
Can you, but it's so high.
Can you so high. I just
feel like in Ghosts.
I
don't. Do you remember that episode of Ghosts where he gets? Is it his shoe that gets stuck?
What the fuck does get stuck?
Yes, something stuck on the roof, and then he can get stuck up there. That would be us.
I want to throw it over and see if I could do it. I'll throw someone else's shoe. I don't really want to. I don't really want to sacrifice
Ginger,
my own.
watch out. Your shoe's getting
I'm chucking your shoe, Ginger. Bring an extra pair. I want to chuck it over there.
I could go to a charity shop before we go.
Yes.
Just buy like 5 pairs of really crap shoes.
Like 3-pound shoes and just chuck it over because I want to see where I'm going.
The top, and then
whatever.
Until Castle find them like 3 years later.
Their next drone video of like promotional video, they're flying over. They're like, what the fuck is on the roof of the castle? All these shoes. I just wanted to see what direction I was going to travel in when I got it done. So they looked at the direction that it was traveling, that they would fall, and that would tell them where they were going next.
Yeah. Or if you were single and you wanted a man or a woman, the direction of your shoe would tell you where the person was living.
Oh, it would like point to the future lover's house.
Future lover.
It's like spin the bottle with a house and a shoe instead of a bottle. I'm down with it. Love it.
But Karen, it is a risky game. It's a risky game because if your shoe lands upside down, then it's bad luck all round.
Ah, shit. The worst when that happens.
I know. It's the worst when you're.
Do you guys have teenagers? Do you guys have teenagers that chuck? When we were growing up, we would chuck our shoes and try to get them caught on the power lines, so they would like dangle there forever. They would get stuck there like on purpose.
I've not seen that, but I bet it does happen. Sounds like a real teenager thing to do.
It's kind of fun. Everywhere we live now, the power lines are buried, so there's no power lines. Everything has to look perfect and shit. But it was kind of cool when you see all these lines of shoes dangling. I liked it. Be a good art piece. Just saying. That's what that game reminded me of, right? You're sitting around drunk, blah, 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 and you're just chucking your shoes because like that's what you do at 2 a.m. when you're like, you know.
I bet they did the shoe throwing at the end of the party.
I think they did.
They did it.
They totally
did their shoe throwing.
Yes.
And then they ate their bannock.
Yeah.
And then they went.
Then they passed out. Totally.
I know.
100%.
If you think about it, if you eat the bannock at the end after you've been drinking whiskey all night,
oh my god, it's the driest thing you've ever eaten in your whole life. So funny.
So you would also come to this party armed with an egg, and the oldest woman in the group would sit with the eggs, and she'd prick a hole in them, and then you would drip your egg into a cup of water, and then a bit like reading tea leaves, however the egg came into the water and the pattern it created would tell your future. And this would be like anything: who your husband's going to be, how many kids you're going to have, if you're going to go traveling, anything. It's like reading tea leaves.
I've never heard of that ever.
Yeah.
You're eating.
That's because it's Scottish and we're weird.
Just reading. No, these people are like so bored and drunk out of their minds.
They were weird, but like this is like all of this stuff is way better than the crappy Halloween stuff that goes on today. Don't you think?
So true. I don't disagree.
So none of that has got any basis in modern Halloween practices.
No.
But the one that mostly does is guising. We actually called it guising when I was a kid. It's called trick-or-treating now because annoyingly we've been taken over by Disney everywhere. But
sorry.
I know. But when I was a kid in Scotland, it was called guising. And I grew up thinking that it was called guising because we're so close to Bonfire Night. So basically the origins of Bonfire Night got a little bit mixed in with Halloween. So Bonfire Night celebrates the wrong word, remembers, warns against. Guy Fawkes, who was only one of a party of people. He wasn't the only person. I don't know why his name's remembered, but they decided in 1605, or I think it was, to blow up the Houses of Parliament. The plot failed, and they were going to use lots of gunpowder. Interestingly enough, Kit Harrison, is that his name? Harrington. Kit Harrington, Game of Thrones, Kit Harrington, our friend Kit.
Yes.
Our castle friend Kit.
Yes.
Starred in a TV series about the gunpowder plot, but not only did he star in that show, actually distantly related to somebody who took part in the gunpowder plot.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, like an ancestor of his.
No way.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
So he so Guy Fawkes was caught, and the rest of his troop. They were tried and found guilty of trying to blow up the House of Parliament. They were in true historical, disgusting, torturous way hung, drawn, and quartered, which is the most disgusting. And I could even bear to think of. It just gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Yep.
I just don't even want to think about it. And then what they also did was they threw you in they took your guts out and threw them in a fire, which is gross.
Which is like the most humane part of being
I'd like to think that you'd be dead by then.
Yeah, I would hope so.
But then they threw them in a fire. They burned them. So the following year and every year after that, in Britain, we've had Guy Fawkes Night, also known as Bonfire Night. And what we do is we have a fire, we set off fireworks, and there is usually children will go around. It doesn't happen nowadays. It's all these council controlled firework displays and bonfires. But when I was a kid, we had a local bonfire that is very reminiscent of the Halloween bonfire. So they kind of, the two got merged. And so we had a local bonfire. It would get built for weeks beforehand. People would take all their scrap wood and chuck it on a fire. We would make a guy. So we would make a person, a bit like a scarecrow. We'd get some old clothes, fill them with straw, put him in I nearly said wheelchair, but it wasn't, a wheelbarrow. And you would go around the houses saying penny for the guy. And I can't remember what the money was collected for. But after we did that, you would then put the guy, the fake person, on top of the bonfire. And then on Bonfire Night, we'd light the fire because we're so gross and macabre in this country. We would light the fire and watch the effigy of Guy Fawkes burn to death again. So that's our Bonfire Night, which you guys don't have in the States at all, do you?
No. And what night is that?
That's the 5th of November, which is actually tonight.
Yeah. So are you going to a bonfire tonight?
Well, it's too late now. It's 10 p.m. But they're
that's true.
and
Sorry.
also like there used to be we now have just public displays, public bonfires, the public. It's all health and safety, and all of that. And
fascinating. It's so fascinating.
And it was kind of cancelled this year because of the virus that shall not be named. So
you said that ran into Halloween.
So that kind of ran into Halloween. And I grew up thinking that guising, which is what we did at Halloween, which was dress up and go round the houses, and we would do like a party trick. You'd have like a poem that you recited or joke that you told or any of those things. I thought that was called guising because of Guy Fawkes Night. But actually, it's got much more ancient origins because it's guising or disguising. And what you're doing is you're disguising yourself.
Yeah, cool.
So that the fairies do not realize who you are. And what people did in the past, this is the coolest bit. This is I knew that you would love.
Yes.
Because I loved it.
Yeah.
Was sought all this like sexy nurse shit that people do now. You disguised yourself as a fairy or as a ghost because you were either a dead person or a fairy, because they're the two people that came about during the thinning of the veil.
Right.
And you would disguise yourself as a fairy or a ghost so that when those beings were going around, they didn't realize that you were human. So it would make you safe from being
Right.
stolen
Kidnapped or
away by
whatever
them.
you do.
Yeah.
Right. Fascinating. That's so fascinating.
Yes. And especially if you were going away from the hearth of the village where the bonfire was, which was
Right.
like a safe space, you had to disguise yourself and trick the fairies. So it's all about tricking
Right.
the fairies, and it has now become dressing up and morphed into trick-or-treating, and also to some extent merged with Bonfire Night, and the whole bonfires and all of that happens on the 5th of November now, rather than 31st of October, which wasn't bloody Halloween in the first place.
Right.
It's a little bit closer to the 5th of November, so it doesn't really matter.
Doesn't.
Now, they would also carry a hollowed out turnip with a candle inside, and apparently that was to drive away the dark spirit. And we also still do that now, but obviously it is pumpkins because they're a lot easier to carve. You need to watch the Farmer Jim video on Facebook that goes around every single year, that's all about Neeps or life, and life is Neeps or something. He is hilarious. Maybe we can find that video and stick it up on the website next to our post, but he's so funny. We carved out Neeps when I was a little kid. Yeah, it was like a pain.
It's like when you go to a restaurant for meeps and tatties. Is that what they're called?
Yeah. Turnips.
Tatties is for turnips. And neeps.
No, tatties is potatoes.
Potatoes. Sorry. I knew that.
And neeps is turnips.
For turnips. It just sounds so cute.
Yeah. Sounds so cute.
It does sound so cute. We have nothing cute names for our food. Yeah. Nope.
Yeah. But they're a bugger to carve out.
Yeah.
But they would carve them out and they would put a candle inside. This then also morphed or merged with the Irish tradition of the jack-o'-lantern, which is what you guys have. And apparently that legend was that this was a bad guy, a bad character who got thrown out of hell. The devil didn't even want him in hell.
Wow.
Got thrown out of hell, and he managed to steal an ember of flame from hell to keep him warm, and he put it in a lantern a hollowed out turnip.
No way.
And that's where the jack-o'-lantern
oh my gosh
comes from.
That's
I know.
Really
I find
cool.
it fascinating how these things morph and merge. And that's going to be like, we're already on an hour and a half, but this is going to be my final little bit, because this is a bit that I found super interesting. All the rituals and the funky little things that Scottish people used to do for Halloween they're interesting, definitely. And I certainly learned things that I didn't know before, but I find it super interesting to find out where bits are taken from other bits and they change into other bits, and how they become something that we do every year without even realizing why we do it.
Right. Or even asking or even caring. We just do it.
Yeah.
So weird.
I know. It's so strange.
Yeah.
So like I said before, actually most of the stuff from Halloween that we associate with Halloween now is things that were imposed upon by the church.
Right.
Rather than actual Celtic pagan tradition. The Celtic pagan tradition does have that thing of lighting fires, having lanterns, dressing up, duking for apples. What do you call it? Ducking?
Dunking. You're like dunking your head.
You're
yes.
duking. You're
not duking. Head. Duking is literally pooping. There's no dukes. A dookie is like a poop.
Okay. I'll agree to disagree. I'll agree to disagree.
The only reason it's okay is that you wouldn't poop for an apple. So it doesn't make sense. But no, you would just be dunking for apples. You're dunking. You're just dunking your head. Right, Tippy? Mwah.
So
Tippy agrees.
Okay. But I'm still going to call it duking because I'm not changing the habit of a lifetime.
Okey-doke.
This is a Scottish podcast. Get with the times. You've got to learn the Scottish way, not the other way
saying
around.
it. I'm not pooping.
You're
for
not going to
apples.
Americize me.
Okay, but
Americanize me. I'm Scottishizing you. That's the way it's happening.
I can't dookie for apple. I can't do it.
You've got to prepare yourself for when you get your Scottish cottage.
Oh God,
You've got to be able to learn to say these words. You've got to practice Glasgow, Edinburgh, duking, and I will come up with
every
whole
time you say
others.
duking, I just think of pooping. That's all that comes to mind. It's really difficult. I'm gonna work on it. I'll try.
Work on it. Every Halloween, say, I'm going duking for apples.
Do you think I can get Tippy's purr on the microphone? Hold on, it's so loud.
Oh, that's so loud.
Can you hear it? It's so loud. I think you were literally, it's getting picked up by Audacity. I can see it. Sorry.
Yeah, we might. Might have to cut that bit
you
out.
better not cut that out. I'm gonna test and see if it's in there. It's the best part of this whole
You'll have
episode.
to actually listen to see.
Sorry.
So, like I said before, the church took Halloween over. They called it All Saints Day, or All Hallows Eve.
Right.
And that's why it's called Halloween, because in Scotland, een is evening. It's like the Scottish way of saying evening. So that's why it's become Halloween. That's how it's morphed into that name. But they would do certain things around that time that were very similar to what people were doing about appeasing the fairies. So, which makes me think that they kind of stole some of them, maybe. They would offer these soul cakes to people who visited their doors. People would go round the doors and they would get these soul cakes, which were like little cakes with raisins, which is maybe like a step up from a bannock. Not quite as bad as a bannock.
Yeah.
Still
Raisins
not that
are
appealing.
Yeah, they're all right.
Especially since maybe in the 1500s, are you playing the is it raisins or rat poop game?
I mean, it's not chocolate chips, but it's a step up from the nothing. So I'll take it.
As my kid, imagine you go to some neighbor who's like a little bit questionable and you don't know them that well. You're like, is that raisins or rat poop? That's like
yeah.
It's like the 15th century version of, is my Halloween candy got a razor blade in it? Like, I don't know if I trust this cake. No. Yeah. So apparently the soul cakes were like an offering to the souls that were trapped in purgatory. So we're with the church, we're no longer offering offerings to fairies, we're offering to dead people instead.
Okay. So it's just, that's where All Saints Day comes from, where it's
something to do with that. Yeah. All Saints Day apparently was originally in May, and then the church decided to move it to the 1st of November just so they could take over Samhain and like incorporate that festival.
Well, it was interesting. I was reading in a book. I actually think it was in that Chasing Ghost books that I referenced, 2 hours ago when we started this podcast episode. They were talking about like the Mexican tradition of like, I can't even say it, but like the sugar skulls and like the Day of the Dead and all that stuff. Like that, like there's many, and there's also like Asian traditions where around the world, historically, this time period, it's so weird. It's so cool. Yeah. Everybody's kind of doing the same thing. Like everybody's celebrating their ancestors. Everybody's reaping their harvest. Everybody's like, it's really fascinating to see all the same, and they're all around the same exact time. It's like that time right between October and November, all around the world, all throughout the centuries. And then of course the church has to come and be like, no, this is our holiday, but really it's been there for centuries before.
Exactly.
It's fascinating.
And it is fascinating how it's in lots of other cultures.
Yes. And across time and all over the world. And they're all celebrating like they're dead. And they're doing the same thing, planning, inviting their dead ancestors to come and visit with them because the veil is so thin. Like that's not unique to the Celtic cultures, which makes it even cooler.
What? You mean we're not unique?
No, sorry, but it's so fascinating. It just makes it actually more special that like it's like unites kind of humans on like a much broader scale that like this human need to like remember, and it even goes back to like Veterans Day, even, where you do take a whole day to remember people that have passed.
Well, I guess
and served.
That's because death is such a scary prospect. It's something that's quite, it's uncertain. We don't know what happens. Everybody does it.
Right.
It's like, so it's something that's a little bit out there and a bit something that is very daunting. And obviously in days of yore, people died in a lot more severe ways than they do now.
And all the time. And
lots of children dying, and it was a lot closer. It was a lot, death was a lot closer than it is now. I feel like now a lot of it's become a lot abstract. People go into hospital and they're drugged up and they, unless somebody dies suddenly, but it's
and the whole point is to extend life as many minutes as you possibly can, it's just,
and you're not having 10 children and having 9 of them die,
right,
for the most part,
right? No, absolutely.
So I can understand why they would have these kind of traditions throughout the world. I know
holidays is the wrong word, but tradition. I just think it's fascinating that they're all the same time of year, cross-culturally. It's fascinating to me. And for the same reason. They literally use because the veil is thin, because the passage between the worlds is so accessible, and you're inviting your ancestors to come. It's creepy as hell, but it's super interesting.
As long as they just don't come in and stand in the corner of my room and watch me.
But it's also very poignant, at the same time, when else can you visit with your ancestors? It says ancestors could be your own mother or your brother. It doesn't have to be ancestors. Always conjures up things that are super old, right? But it could be just someone who's just passed or whatever. It's sweet and creepy all at the same time. All rolled into one fucked up little day. And let's throw in some candy on top, because why not?
let's just speak about ghosts and then throw some candy on top of it.
No sense whatsoever.
And then the Christian church comes along and makes it all about witches and demons and spooky stuff.
Right. It's no,
let's turn this festival that was about honoring our ancestors.
Right.
It's interesting that you brought that up, because actually that was something that I did type in, was that celebration used to be about, even though it is about the fairies, and the fairies are creepy, there's it's about honoring your ancestors. And then the church came in and it was ghosts are evil and they're the devil and satanic and demonic, and witches make them appear, and the witch has got her broom and her cauldron and it's all evil. And that is actually what has become a lot of the images in modern day Halloween, which I find quite interesting.
It's so interesting. And why is that? Why did they do that? Because that's something that I remember learning it, but I can't remember what the why is.
Why was the church?
Yes. What was the reason for them demonizing Halloween?
I don't think, do you know what? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not gonna.
No, I respect that. I want to look into that, because I remember learning how All Saints Day and Hallows Eve, how it became the commercial candy filled holiday that it is now. I feel like maybe next year for round 2 Halloween, we can research that until then, because I would like to know. Because
that was actually in my research and it was super interesting, but we can talk about it next year if you want.
Oh,
we can leave a cliffhanger.
Whoa. Well, I'll leave it up.
Here.
I'll leave it up to you. We can go either way. I know we've covered a lot, and we're almost at the 2-hour mark, which is horrifying, but yet that just is how we roll. Because we cannot shut the fuck up.
I know.
Oh, well,
it was literally 4 more sentences on my research.
Okay, do it. Wrap it up.
So I'm going to speak about it super quick. I find it really interesting because I hadn't known about it, that apparently in the States, trick-or-treating got it before it was called trick-or-treating. This whole idea of mischief got way out of control.
Yeah.
It was like way out of control, and it was an American thing, because I think that's why we didn't really have trick-or-treating until and Halloween wasn't a big thing in Scotland in terms of commercialism until maybe 10-20 years ago. We didn't have loads of Halloween stuff in the shops. There wasn't loads of shit that you could buy. It was all very homemade when I was a kid, and it was all about duking for apples and guising. In the States, it became super commercial because in the 1920s and 30s, it became this really bad mischief night, which apparently had to do with the Depression and the just society around the Depression, and kids needed some letting off steam or whatever. But they were doing super awful things. They were like taking wheels off people's carts, and then these people would have accidents and die, and they would like open the gates so that their animals would come out and die, and all these really horrible things. So then it became this countrywide push to soften Halloween and make it nice again. And so basically the communities took some action, decided to clean it up, and so they tried to promote all these things that weren't destructive. So they'd have like parties and parades,
pour sugar on it, basically.
Pour sugar on it, cute costumes. And then all the companies that were obviously starting to realize that they could make some money off this, pushed it in a commercial sense. So the first lot of costumes that were made for sale were in the 30s, and they chose cute things, so that, I mean, there's still an element of ghosts and witches, but a lot of the stuff was cutified in order to take away from what was clearly just becoming like another episode of the Purge,
excuse
basically.
To have destruction. That's so interesting. And it makes perfect sense. Like perfect sense. And I do remember
the candy companies got involved as well. So they were like, we can make money off this too.
Oh,
we're
hell
gonna make special candy for Halloween,
right?
And, all of this kind of thing.
Now that you mention it, I do remember growing up in the 80s and being like on guard, because I had an older brother and an older sister, and I remember now distinctly, it's so interesting, like way back when I was younger in like the early mid 80s, and I remember it being like a night of danger, being like, okay, where is everybody? Where are your friends? What are you doing? Like, all kids need to be accounted for. Since my brother was older than me, he would have been in high school in the late 80s. And I remember being like, yes. And that's when everybody's like, house will be toilet papered, or eggs will be thrown at cars, and blah, blah, blah. Like all that kind of teenage carnage would totally happen. It was a thing. And it was like, everybody expected it, and everybody kind of like braced themselves for it, which now does not happen. You're right. So I wonder, it's interesting then to take that back.
It's been health and safety, just like Bonfire Night. Bonfire Night, when I was a kid, we would all make this, we would just find like a patch of ground in the village, and everyone would put sticks on, and the bonfire would grow and grow and grow. And people would set off fireworks in their back gardens, and everybody would do it. And now it's like the village has a firework display. It's organized properly. Everyone stands behind a barrier. Nobody gets up close. We've got special people that set them off. They've got their health and safety certificate. It's all being cleaned up, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but I think not necessarily a good thing either, because I feel like a lot of these pagan festivals were about releasing tension, pressure, letting yourself go for a night, having the community, getting together with the community, celebrating with the community. Life was very hard, so let's get drunk and play silly games and swallow dry bannocks and like light fires and jump over them. And that's actually what Halloween used to be. And then it got really super ugly in the States for a while. So then we cleaned it all up.
I can definitely see that. I still want to know though, the only question mark in my head left. That was super
God,
interesting.
I hope this is one that I can answer.
No, it was just what I was saying before, which is where the church, where it got all, where the church came in, and like that I feel like there was like a meeting of like the pagan plus the Christian, and then everything got with like the evil portion of it, with the witches and like what you were saying, like the witches and the ghosts and the like, is that just all the spirit world? Like what it, because I remember learning
I'm no
this.
expert, so I don't know, and I wouldn't want to say that this is specifically connected to Halloween. I think this is just the way the church viewed stuff, and it got tacked onto Halloween.
Okay.
And the Halloween became those things because the church already viewed spirits as evil and demons, and there's heaven and hell, and the fiery depths of hell and purgatory, and people that are trapped, and if you're a ghost then you must be trapped, which means you must be evil, and if you're a witch, what they thought about witches. I don't think they thought about witches because of Halloween. I think they thought that anyway, and it all got kind of lumped together.
Okay. And I was
don't quote me on that. I don't
know.
And
I was just looking up because I know it's the night before All Saints Day, which is a super Catholic holiday. When I was just Googling it really quick.
They just wanted to take over something that was already a pagan festival.
Right.
So Christmas Day wasn't a pagan festival of a special little boy that got born.
Right.
It was a different kind of a pagan festival.
Right. Absolutely.
And they took it over and made it Christmas Day.
Right.
So I don't think they necessarily went like, oh, we're going to match these two up. I think they just wanted to take over. They decided, oh, the village people have a celebration around this time.
Right. They force assimilated it.
What it's about, but we're gonna assimilate certain parts of it because it'll make it easier for them to forget their pagan ways and join the church.
Sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But I am not an expert on.
No, I just think I think it's so interesting how it is not a coincidence that all of these historic Christian days correspond with the pagan festivals that were happening for centuries before Christianity showed up. I just think it's super fascinating, and I think people just, the people are in the now and they don't know or care about the history, which is fine. Like, that's fine. Not everybody are folklore nerds like we are. You know what I mean? I'm not judging anybody for it. I love reflecting on it and being like, holy shit, that's really interesting. Like, and
it is probably something that happened very gradually.
Oh, so gradually.
Just in the same way that Halloween now, and the way that Halloween is now, is happened quite gradually, to the point that, like you say, most of the people that are going out trick-or-treating aren't thinking about why they do this or why they do that. Why do I carry a lantern? They're not thinking about those things. They're just caught up in their tradition.
Right.
They're not thinking about it. And I think it probably was the same in that gradually the church infiltrated. Because if you think about the fact that the Romans moved in to Britain in the 0 BC or whatever it's called, very, very long time.
Yes.
And then obviously there were pockets of Scotland that hadn't been touched by that at all. And then St. Columba comes up in the 500s or 600s, and he probably has some sort of influence. And then some church moves in, and it's all very gradual, and cultures change gradually, and they're influenced by different people that come in and move the way that you wouldn't even notice. I mean, we didn't have friggin' hummus 25 years ago in supermarkets, and now it's all over the place, and nobody thinks, when did we first get hummus?
Yeah. I love that.
I know that's
hummus. Yes, hummus. Yes,
I know that's a really silly analogy, but I'm thinking about all the
so
foods
true.
or
Yeah,
things that,
absolutely.
and it happens so slowly that I don't think you noticed. And I think it was probably the same with these festivals. It's not like someone decreed, starting from tomorrow, all the pagan festivals are all going to become Christian festivals. Right. And we're going to change the dates and change the names. I think it probably just happened so slowly.
True.
And people conceded a bit. Oh, well, we still get to light our bonfire, so we may as well call it All Hallows Eve instead of Samhain. It's only a name. And then, oh, well, we'll stop lighting our bonfire on that day. And, it just happens so slowly. People probably didn't notice.
Yeah, I think you're right. I just think it's so weird when I walk around listening to my ghost podcasts and I'm freaking myself out. And it's Halloween here. And there's literally like houses in which children habitate and they have like murder scenes decorating their front lawn.
But the crazy thing is that's all a modern invention, but also
so weird.
Encouraged by the church.
It's right. And commercialism.
Maybe not the murder scenes, but you know what I mean? Yeah, all the kind of ghost and ghoul stuff.
I know, it's just really weird.
Like, I think I want to take back some of the old Samhain traditions and dress up like a fairy because I'm going to trick the fairies. So I need to dress up like a fairy, although that's not necessarily a beautiful thing. That might be a bit ugly.
Need like a gray long wig and like a green or gray long
my boobs
linen.
Hanging out.
Yes. No bra with just wait.
One big tooth.
Yeah.
Oh
my God, just sling those suckers over your shoulder. Halloween is celebrated.
I could be like all slimy and sad, like an Uranus. Could be all like
like your goat hooves. Ooh.
Yeah, so it's not beautiful, but I'm going to dress up like a fairy.
I know, it would make
and
sense.
Eat some bannocks, maybe jump over the fire. Duke for apples.
Not duking for apples, just to make that clear. Not doing it. Not doing. Oh my God. Well, I am really excited. On that note, and we're out. Actually, we literally just crossed the 2-hour mark. I can't even believe it. But I do have to say, next week rolls right, like literally beautifully chronologically in line with what you just did today. Yes.
Are you going to give me a hint?
We are talking about the, I can't say it right now because I've had too much to drink, but I'm sitting next to my Catherine Briggs book and I've already researched it. I'm almost ready. I could even record it right now, but I haven't actually had dinner yet. I was supposed to feed my family an hour ago and I'm still yabbering. So but it's about the change of the seasons and going from Samhain to Beltane. Look at me. I just sound like a normal person. And there is almost like a god or a hag who accompanies the season from one to the next and who kind of relinquishes her control around Beltane and who has control of the winter season all winter. And it's about her. She's a whole character and she's sort of like the goddess of winter, really, which also goes in lines. Yes. She's a fascinating, super.
I don't know my folklore.
Yeah, you did. You totally impressed me. And now that I've learned so much, I'm like, how the fuck did I not come across this before either? Like, shame on me. Yeah. But she's a huge, big, very much alive, big, and really interesting character that I cannot wait to dive into. I
cannot wait to hear all about that because I know her name, but I don't actually know.
There's a lot on her. She's a cool character. And I'm also going to be definitely doing some drawings and paintings based on her for the Celtic Collective coming up too, which is Snow Queen, but she kind of is the Snow Queen because she has like a hag part, and she also has like a goddess part as well. And I'm like, oh my God, this is literally perfect it's the exact follow-up from what we just talked about today. So just setting the stage for next week. We will be right on schedule. I'm not going to delay it. I'm going to be around and I can't wait to do it. So thank you for today. That was fascinating. I knew literally I didn't know 90% of what you went over today. So that was really, really, really interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It was awesome. And we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah. Bye. Bye.